So, hi, I'm Joel, and I'm back with Time Bandit after some technical issues earlier in the day. Um, Being a game about waiting, of course, you have to wait to see the presentation for the game as well. I'm going to start with the trailer because, because it's a real time game. There's things about it that are difficult to show through gameplay that can be showed off much more easily with the trailer. So we'll start with that. So, Time Bandit is a real-time game where everything that you do takes time. So if you use a forklift to push a box, for example, it will take a half hour in real time to finish pushing. And all that you can do while you're waiting is save the game and come back later. And so in the trailer, you were able to see that using some video trickery. I advanced time and you saw those boxes moving much faster than they will in the game. Because a game like this naturally presents some difficulties with showing via streaming. There's really not that much that you can do while playing it at any one time, and a lot of things are blocked off at the start of the game, so you can't even really explore that much. Things progress very slowly. They do open up eventually, but the intro in particular is deliberately a bit slow and exposition heavy. But I do think it's important to show off the intro because this is also a very narrative driven game, and I want to show everyone the very anti-capitalist premise of Time Bandits. But I will try to make things a little more interesting. I'll read out the dialogue and the intro cutscenes, and then afterward there's not that much that we can do at any one time. But we'll be able to set some things in motion, start pushing some boxes. We won't be able to really see them all the way through. So basically what I'll be doing is mostly walking around the space to give us something to look at while I talk about the game. And not just the game itself, but the things that I'm experimenting with and the artistic approach that I'm using to make it. So even though there's not that much to see because of the game's real-time mechanics, hopefully I can make this a sort of interesting talk that people can get something out of. Because frankly, I would love if people could take something away from this, and if they were inspired to make more real-time games like this, and especially more political games like this. But before getting into all of that, let's start the game and get a little introduction to its anti-capitalist premise. And this is our facility where everything begins. At least, it's where everything used to begin. These days, it's a bit of a mess, but that's where you come in. Please allow me to be the first to wish you an official good morning on the job, and a very warm welcome to Mining and Chronometrics Multinational, saving time since 1889. As I am sure you've read our website, you are already aware that our mission is to satisfy you by providing the opportunity to get in a good day's work every day for the foreseeable future. While your mission is to use our newly devised automatic forklifts to get all these boxes out of the way. I didn't sign up for this. Have any other open positions? What? Haven't you learned to recognize when someone's offered you a good opportunity, son? No, this is all we've got at the moment. Now, the forklifts need fuel to run, and since you're an independent contractor, you're responsible for funding that with your own paycheck. At least you don't have to get your hands dirty or break your back. The job will just take a little thought and, more than anything, commitment. Tell you what, since you've been such a good listener, I'll give you a forklift and a gallon of fuel for free. Okay. A little more enthusiasm, if you could. It's not every day I just give something out for free. Usually you have to earn it. Now open up your inventory by holding R2 and release it to select a forklift. Go up to the side of that box that's blocking the entrance to the facility and press A to start pushing it. Phew, that sure was a rush of action, wasn't it? We like to keep things lively around here. Your energy meter goes down at a much faster rate when you're doing labor-intensive work like that, so make sure you press those buttons as fast as you can. Speaking of which, you did notice your energy meter in the upper left corner of the screen, right? That'll decrease automatically while you're working, and if we find you unconscious out here, we'll have no choice but to throw you in jail. Jail? You can't be serious. Do I look like a comedian to you, son? I'm just the bearer of the news, your friendly middle manager. It's a small measure that the government, back when there was a government, allowed us to take. They say it teaches a little lesson on discipline and helps keep the gears of the economy turning. You're welcome to go home and rest at the quarters we've set up for you in town whenever you need to. Sleeping at your apartment will gradually replenish your energy meter. It can take up to 8 hours to fill it up all the way, depending on how low it is. You need a full night's rest to be in tip-top shape for work the following day. Going home to your apartment and sleeping will also save your game. It doesn't save automatically? No, you need to go home to save. If you quit the game while you're out here working, you'll fall asleep right where you're standing, and then you'll find yourself in jail when you wake up. The forklift will take some more time to finish pushing that box. Lucky for you, I only set this one up as a little test before the real thing, so it's quite a bit lighter than the others you'll find in there. It'll be finished moving soon. Eventually, you're going to have to learn to be patient and accept what you don't have any control over. That's just life. Your wisdom is awe-inspiring. Watch your sarcasm. Just trying to pass on a bit of common sense to you, son. You'd be good to learn a thing or two from it. While you're waiting, why don't you go into town and buy an axe? The guy at the gas station probably sells them. It's the only shop in town. He sells everything now. Anyway, you're going to need the axe to cut down a tree for wood at the forest on the other end of town. Incidentally, you'll find your accommodations between the gas station and the forest. Did I already mention that the company is very kindly providing you with housing? Maybe you can stop in to save your game on your way to chop down the tree. You don't want to lose all this progress we've made already, do you? Don't take that as a suggestion to rest for too long right now, though. Come back here when you've got the wood, and I'll give you a call on your radio with further instructions. You catch all that? No, I already forgot what to do. You need to open up your ears and pay attention. I'll give you my number, so if you really did somehow forget anything, you can give me a call. You can open your radio by pressing L1. But I'll tell you right now, if you can't handle this, I don't know how you're going to do the rest of your job. Better get used to it, son. If only work were about having fun. So, he taught us about some of the real-time mechanics, including this box that we've started pushing. There's not too much time left on this one because, as he said, it's a test box. It's a tutorial box. The ones that we'll be dealing with later will take much longer than this. But since we have to wait a bit anyway, let's go into town and buy the axe, as he said. He also told us about our energy meter, which goes down as we work, and how we have to sleep to fill it up, and also about the punishment of getting caught sleeping on the job. So if our energy meter runs out, then we'll be put in jail, and it will actually lock us out of the game. And I'll talk more later about the motivation behind these this kind of imposed non-interactivity. Welcome to my gas station. I haven't seen you around before. You must be new in town. Let me guess, you're looking for an axe. How did you know? New folks in town are always coming in telling me they've been tasked to chop down a tree. Strange, isn't it? I shouldn't have to be the first to tell you folks there's not many trees left these days. I can hardly believe the damage that company has done to this place. But I don't blame you or me for just going along with things. We've got bills to pay. I resigned myself to that long ago. There's too few jobs where you get to do something good. My canvassing days are over. Take a look around town. There's not a damn soul to spread the word to. It's just you new hires with the company who continue to stop by. They told you they hired you to clean up some boxes, I suppose. Simple sounding enough. I'll bet whatever you end up doing will somehow be making things even worse. It's always that way. But no matter how bad things get, we life forms adapt. The new becomes normal for us soon enough. And that's at least one thing we've got over the machines. Ah, there I go giving my super serious monologues to the new folks again. It gets lonely around here, you might imagine. How'd you find your way to this ghost town? I remember buying a ticket. You paid to come work here, huh? All I can think to say to that is try to live life without any regrets. Welcome to town anyway. If the strangeness, the unfamiliarity overwhelms you at the start, the feeling will fade as you grow used to it all. And I assure you, you will. It takes just a bit of time. Well, I won't hold you up any longer. Here you are. It'll be $5. And if you need to refuel, you can use the pumps outside. Don't burn too much gas if you can help it. But I know you don't have much of a choice. A job's a job. Now, what will I do when they're gone and I'm all alone again? Ah, I know. I'll give you my number so you can keep in touch. I've learned quite a bit about the natural history of this place, and one can't really miss the unnatural history while they're at it either. I guess you could say I study the environment and all that they've done to destroy it over time. I've lived here my whole life, so I have a lot to share. Perhaps you'll find it interesting. Don't be shy. If you find yourself next to anything that piques your curiosity, open up your radio by pressing L1 and give me a call. So since we got that axe to cut down a tree, I'm going to buy a seed so that we can grow one back. So, like I said, the beginning of the game is a bit exposition heavy. I'm going for a kind of parody of AAA games with their long-winded tutorials. The most obvious part of the parody might be these over-the-top QuickTime events that you have to do for basic actions, and I'm doing another one right now to refuel because we're going to need some gas later. Maybe it's a bit hard to grab players' interest with this long intro, but I am trying to use recognizable forms from the history of video games to draw them in, which is partly why you have this retro, low-poly art style. I do want to appeal to a wide audience, and honestly, a lot of people react to these time mechanics as if they're really unappealing, and yet they're in a lot of very popular games, actually. It's just that I think they're a bit less explicit. People engage with waiting mechanics in Animal Crossing, for example, and that's obviously a very popular game. Or there are all of these mobile games like Farmville that require you to either pay or wait to continue. But I think that what causes people to have a somewhat visceral reaction sometimes to the time mechanics in Time Bandit is that they might feel that it's laying a little too bare the passage of time and how we spend it. How we might be wasting time on all of these games that reward us with little digital treats and upgrades, which Time Bandit doesn't have a lot of, kind of takes all those things away. Like, there are no upgrade mechanics or RPG-like stats in this game. I specifically excluded them, not just for reasons of scope, although that is a very good reason alone to exclude them, but also because I don't personally find them particularly interesting, and I wanted to include progress that's a bit more qualitatively meaningful, like getting new items that do something new and opening up access to new areas and opening up shortcuts that connect the world in new ways. And then the funny thing is, after players get past this longish, slow intro, my playtesters have often reported that they're addicted to the game. So, in spite of these real-time mechanics, I mean, people think, oh, it must be so boring, but actually, People get into these game loops, which I feel a bit bad about. Like, I don't like the addictive aspects of games, and it's not really what I want out of this game. But I think the reason that it happens is that I did want to pull players in a bit with these traditional game loops of managing resources and making progress, before making them step back from the game more by increasing the timescales, as things start to take not just half hour, but days or even weeks of playtime. The idea being to break these game loops eventually and get players thinking about their temporal experiences with games and work. And on a narrative level, the game will deal with these issues in terms of how our social systems of exploitation create and structure these addictive temporal experiences that can feel like they're out of our control. So you saw that we cut down the tree for wood. We're going back into the facility. That box finished moving. And we're going to see what else the boss has to tell us to do. So, I see you made it in. How did you know? We've got a camera up there watching for anyone entering and leaving. Just a precaution. I'm sure we don't have to worry about you getting up to any trouble. A surveillance camera. You got the wood, right? So start building a bridge across the water at the first bridge building station on your left. I can't just swim across? Not if you don't want the toxins to seep into your skin. Now, to be sure, we follow all recommendations of our yearly internal review of environmental costs and trade-offs, but we can't always help things getting a little dirty when we're doing tough work, now can we? Once you get to the other side of the first bridge building station, look for the essential item over there that you'll need to complete a lot of other tasks. You'll likely have to move some more boxes out of the way to get to it. We can skip this, he's just giving us more instructions. So now we're going to build this bridge like he told us to do, do another wacky QuickTime event, and so this one takes an hour. So now the real-time mechanics are getting real, but you know, we don't have to just wait for this. The game's going to open up more as it goes, and you'll be able to work on multiple things at a time, so you'll be able to multitask, and not just be waiting for one thing at a time. Good God, I forgot to tell you the most important thing. That crystal you just picked up, that's what we sent you in here to find. Bring any crystals you find over to a camera right away for us to process, and we'll give you a little bonus, along with your paycheck each day, of course. So we received $2 and an energy pill. That pill might come in handy if your energy meter is low. If you don't think you'll have enough time to get back home before you pass out, or if you just can't get enough of working, swallow the energy pill for a nice boost. That way you can avoid going to jail. Remember though, the only way to save your game is to go home and sleep. I think that's really all you need to know for now. So congratulations on completing your orientation and welcome to the team. Now that wasn't so bad, was it? Somehow I doubt this will be the end of your problems though. There's always more to learn on the job. Tell you what, since I've got a lot of other work to get back to, I'll give you the number to IT. If you have any other concerns, press L1 to open up your radio and call May. From now on, she can give you support on all the minor details of your job. Well, good luck and give it your 100%. Collect those crystals. Back to work. Hey there. He can be a little harsh, to say the least. I've dealt with worse. You must have worked a lot of bad jobs in your life. His lectures can get pretty long-winded, too, but don't worry. Your energy meter doesn't go down while you're talking to people. I'm May. If you need any support, you'd better call me first rather than the boss. I can give you hints for particular puzzles you encounter. And I'm handy with tech and pretty good at understanding systems in general, so if you're confused about how to use your equipment or how any of the other game mechanics work, I can fill you in on that too. You'll have to learn from your own experiences at the end of the day, but I can point you in the right direction. I've built up a few survival skills in this world. They pay me, not well, and lend me a tiny office space, but apart from that, I'm all on my own out here. It's all I need. I can tinker around with stuff, play computer games when I need a break. I make my own way. I don't rely on anyone. Relying on others isn't a weakness. I don't agree. At the end of the day, I don't think anyone's there for you, not when it comes down to it. It's just my job to help, and I don't mind it. And anyway, you're a novice. But with time, you should harden yourself. You have to. The boss's diatribes are, frankly, nothing compared with the sorts of things the really powerful people at the company can do. Be careful out there, and don't hesitate to call for help. Okay, so I'm sure that you're all sick of hearing the dialogues, but I do want to show off this part of the game, so those were calls that were all being triggered by specific events, specific things that were happening. They were intro conversations, but this is a part of the game where you can call the characters and play optional conversations. It's a small part of the game, but it's one that took me a long time to make, because there's tons of these dialogues that I wrote, and they're contextualized to all kinds of different situations in the game, like where you are, what you're doing, how much time has passed with regard to certain things, and so on. So this call, for example, this only plays when you have set something in motion, so it's only playing because we started building that bridge. And she's talking about waiting and temporal experiences in general, and sort of giving you some life advice on dealing with habits and things like that. But all the conversations are kind of like this. They provide different kinds of information, including in-game world stuff, hints on what to do next, as well as non-fictional details on real-world issues. And for those, I spent quite a while researching them. I guess I'm inspired a bit by, well, when I was younger, I really liked reading these big postmodern novels, and I suppose I'm still a bit inspired by them in terms of how they covered social issues. They would sometimes use like a ton of encyclopedic details and like integrate that into their fictional narrative. So that's sort of the idea behind this. But anyway, I'm gonna start walking around, showing off some of the game world while I keep talking. But more obvious inspiration for those radio conversations, which you know for sure if you've ever played it or know of it, is Metal Gear Solid, which just talk about showing off some of the puzzles. Except like I said, we can't really do anything. So we got another phone call telling us we can't do anything because these piles of trash, we don't have the item to deal with them yet. Anyway, Metal Gear Solid as an inspiration is it's a game that bizarrely, despite being such a big budget game, has this very strong anti-imperialist politics, and it's quite explicit about it. And I think it deserves some credit for not only for those politics, but also for how those politics are supported by the form taken by that series' gameplay and storytelling. Because honestly, I think that it's the closest that video games, or at any rate certainly AAA video games, have come to the theater of the Marxist playwright Bertolt Brecht, who's also a big inspiration for me, because his theater was designed to be deliberately non-immersive in order to get the audience to reflect on what the play that they were watching was saying about the real world. And I think that the disjunct between how Metal Gear Solid is played and the lengthy, non-interactive cutscenes that it uses to tell its story, probably the most common criticism among those who are not fans of the series, is actually an extremely effective way of constantly breaking up the player's experience of power fantasy and giving them plenty of time and space to think about the political themes that the game is addressing. So this is something that I think we can do. We can actually push this box, and it looks like if we do that, we'll be able to get that crystal and get into the mines. But of course, as you see, it will take a half hour to do it. So actually, we won't be able to get in there. But anyway, to talk more about Metal Gear Solid and its radio conversations. Those radio conversations in that game series are actually like my favorite, one of my favorite parts of the game, because there were lots of highly contextualized, nitty-gritty details that touch on real-world themes get addressed. And it's also where lots of weird Easter eggs and meta-dialogues that appear to speak directly to the player happen. So you see the bridge has moved a bit. We've still got quite a while to go, so I'm going to start heading out of here. There's really not much more for us to do. Something that struck me recently, actually, is that games have kind of already primed players to expect the game to speak directly to them. And I think that this has a lot of unexplored political potential. There are games like The Beginner's Guide and Getting Over It, which are not particularly political games, but they're games that are documentary in style, and they maintain a dialogue with the player the whole time. And then in Metal Gear Solid, the characters will nonchalantly deliver button prompts to you amidst in-story conversation and otherwise say things that constantly break your immersion in the game. And this is, I think, a common kind of writing style in a lot of games. And I think it's a kind of writing that's alienating in a way. It takes you out of the game by reminding you of the real world. But I think that that can serve really well to get the player thinking. So I've tried using a similar tone and writing style in Time Bandit. So we're going to see what this character has to say now, who's come out of the water just now. Who are you? Do you have any idea what you're doing by just giving them those crystals? We can't talk now. It's not safe. Can you meet me at the park? What time will you be free tomorrow? So we are actually setting, this is real time. We're actually setting like the actual time that we have to meet him tomorrow. And the idea behind this is, you know, I want the writing style to support like thinking about the themes that the game is addressing, but I'm also thinking about how can the pacing of the story do this using the real-time mechanics, create like a temporal structure that supports getting players to think about the real-world themes that the game is addressing. So not just in this case where you have to meet the character the next day, but so when we do meet him. It's going to be the last sort of intro cutscene, and then after that, the main story dialogues will take place mostly through those radio calls that I've talked about so much. And those radio calls, they're going to be calls that are actually paid to you by other characters, and they work like real life phone calls in the sense that the characters will only pay you these calls over the course of days and weeks of playtime. And in a way, this is like an experiment in the pacing of storytelling, but at the same time, it's not that experimental because this is already kind of how people engage with serial narratives like many TV shows. It's just that the game is imposing some more temporal requirements on how long you have to wait and when stuff will happen, and it prevents you from doing something equivalent to binge watching. Because what I'm really interested in is the political potential of different imposed paces for storytelling. So with Time Bandit, my idea is that spacing things out will allow players to integrate the game into their lives in a unique way that creates structure for thinking it over. So continually coming back to the game extends the time that players will work with the ideas that it addresses, and making it so that there are times when players can't play also gives them plenty of time for reflection. So besides having to wait for boxes and things like that to finish, you know, there's these ways of getting locked out of the game. Like you have to, like our energy meter has gone down a bit if you look in the upper left corner of the screen. So we have to sleep for a certain amount of time for that to refill. And then also like one of the punishments for getting caught is that you go to jail and actually can't continue the game until you get out. And I think that taking away interactivity within the game in this way can shift players' attention to applying the ideas that they've been thinking about in the game to their thoughts and actions outside of the game. So incidentally, we are going to sleep right now, and this is where I'm going to cheat a bit. Don't try this at home, because you will be punished for doing this. But I'm the programmer, so I'm allowed to get away with it. But yeah, there is a punishment built into the game. So, okay, so I did set the time right, because he's calling, we're late for the meeting. he's telling us he's asking us where we are. So we're gonna hurry over there before he runs away or something, and we're gonna go and see what he has to tell us. Thanks for coming. I'll give you the rundown, kid. No time for questions. In the 1980s, the company you're working for, during their regular mining activities, discovered a new chemical element, chromium. Colloquially known as time crystals, this material, when gathered in large enough quantities, holds within it the power to slow, accelerate, and even reverse time. This was nothing less than the discovery by modern science and technology of a fountain of youth. They kept it all under wraps from the public, except for the wealthiest of the wealthy, the 1% of the 1%, whose investments they sought out with the promise of the magical ability to bend time to their will. As for their workers, they were digging up crystals that wealthy investors were paying billions for, and handing them over for a couple dollars and a drug that kept them awake, just like you. Here, I've prepared a small presentation for you. Karl Marx, the 19th century economist, wrote about surplus value, the money pocketed by the capitalist from the product of the laborer's work after subtracting wages. That is, the value of the labor not paid to the laborer. Only a certain amount of the workday is made up of necessary labor time, the time it takes for the laborer to make a product equal to what was paid for their labor. Whatever work is done beyond that time makes surplus value. It goes to the company. Marx expressed the growth of capital by means of the exploitation of labor by the equation of money, commodity, money. Money makes more money by buying the commodity of labor and extracting surplus value. This was the formula by which capital had accumulated in the hands of the bourgeoisie for several centuries, exponentially fueling inequality between the economic classes. So you see that, just with good old-fashioned wage labor, the company could grow its wealth by paying its workers far less than their time was worth. But this wasn't enough for them. Not content with the rate of surplus value they achieved, they dreamed bigger. Their plan? Once they accumulated enough time crystals, they would build a machine that could be used to place all their workers inside of a bubble in which whole lifetimes would pass in a mere instant for those watching on the outside. They would rapidly work generation after generation to death. Meanwhile, a small few, the shareholders who purchased the time crystals with their investments, along with the CEO, would get the chance to work the reverse technological miracle on themselves, putting a cloak around them in which time slowed so that they could live forever. Of course, they're a selfish bunch. Their ranks have been dwindling amidst infighting. The board of directors now consists of just the most ruthless among them who could survive with cunning, or the brute force of capital. There's ex-military general and arms supplier Captain Cortez, the mastermind scientist of human behavior Dr. Eisman, the charismatic cult leader Calvin Drake, and of course the CEO, Old Star. Their aim is to live essentially as immortal gods, accumulating capital until the sun burns out. But they would need an unbelievable amount of time crystals to do all of this, and we stopped them for a time. I led efforts to unionize the workers, and we put a stop to work. Not only that, we infiltrated the company HQ to try to seize their design plans and materials for ourselves. And they brought in military force to crush us. I got away, but many were captured. Since I doubt they've given up on their plan, there's a good chance they're keeping them somewhere, ready to exploit once they've accumulated enough time crystals. In the meantime, they hired on a small contingent of independent contractors to operate the machines. This setup allows them to keep their workers separated from one another in space and time, preventing another revolt. They sent you in to press some buttons, that's all. Just what's needed to keep the machines running and get to the rest of the time crystals. They'll use them against you once you collect enough for them, your lifetime reduced to a blip of capital added to their bank account. You're young, fresh, unradicalized, ignorant of all that happened. New to town, so not a soul to tell you about it. Well, that's why I'm here. I've been waiting patiently for the opportunity to meet you. I've been in hiding since the Union was defeated long ago, but I wasn't just spending my time going on Twitter. I was working on a plan. Imagine if we could get our hands on enough crystals to power our own machines. All those processes you've been waiting for to finish, they could be done in what we would perceive to be a mere instant. We could take back the ones they captured, and then we could rapidly seize the means of production right from under them. All of the capital they've generated by stealing the value of our labor from us, we could finally steal back from them and make the society we always wanted. And that's not all, of course. We could get our revenge, send the CEO and the shareholders straight to their deaths by turning time rapidly forward on them. We've been denied pleasure in our lives, but no more. We're going to have some fun. We're going to get the justice we've deserved all these years. It's all up to you. Free us all from this alienating mechanical labor, and you open up a world of our own to do whatever we wanted. A world where all that we've ever dared dream of can be made real. Here's my sole request. Stop giving the crystals to them. Bring them to me instead. Sorry to have you meet me here just so I could deliver so much exposition to you like this. I just had to make sure you understood the importance of this task. And if I still haven't convinced you, I can offer you something else to sweeten the deal. I can pay you a fair wage for every crystal you bring me. It's not much. We have limited funds left over from the Union, but it's still far more than that pathetic bonus they give you. Like I said, no time for questions. I chose the park as our meeting location because the last place anyone looks is right under their noses. You might not be able to find an entrance anywhere, but the company HQ is the clock tower right behind us. We should get out of here. I've disabled the cameras inside the facility so you can get any crystals you find past the entrance. I'll be waiting for you to bring me crystals outside the entrance to the facility where we first spoke. You got it. Let's start a revolution. Glad to have you on board. Let's get started. There's no more time to waste. So, this is an explicitly anti-capitalist game, as you can certainly tell by now if you hadn't already. But, of course, at the same time, it's just a bit tongue-in-cheek. I mean, the character there is a bit over the top with his flippers and his old slide projector that he pulled out to give us a presentation on key Marxist concepts. So, although I want to be very direct in how I talk to players about social issues, I do really want them to feel like they're able to have their own responses to it all. So all of this is situated in a big melodrama with characters who don't necessarily agree with each other on everything. They'll contradict each other a lot. They'll have different responses and strategies for dealing with these social issues. So you will really have to think for yourself about what all these characters are expressing. As the story goes on, it will become clear that they're shaped in different ways by their responses to their economic situations, to the history of colonization, to environmental issues, and more. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited about this game, that this is a story, a drama, where the characters are really representatives of their social and historical contexts, and that players are really encouraged to think about those contexts. So obviously, I'm really concerned with making political work, and I'm specifically concerned with making effective political work that affects how people think and even how they act. And so maybe I can discuss what I think are some of the limitations of the single-player video game form as a politically efficacious form. For one, this game has taken forever to make, and that's true of a lot of digital games, and especially anything that has any sort of large scope, which, you know, can be interesting. I mean, it kind of resembles me working on it, kind of resembles the act of playing it, especially as you're a worker who has to spend all this time to do things. And maybe like reflecting on your habits and your temporal experiences and so on. Maybe that can be like a political thing. But I do really think, regardless, that outputting many much smaller works of art can be much more effective if what you're interested in is making politically effective art. And second, I think that what art that is politically effective ultimately needs to be doing is bringing people together. So I've made stuff in the past that I think fit these criteria better than this game. So like a few years ago, I made a game called Boss Battle, which only took me a few weeks to make, and it's a physical game, and it's a social game that's also about stealing back from your employer. You saw we just stole that crystal and delivered it. But the difference is that you do it as a team in Boss Battle. You work with other workers to unionize and fight back. It's sort of a role-playing game. And the thing that really amazed me with that game, that really inspired me, was that after playing it, I didn't have to prompt people at all, but they spontaneously started to have discussions and argument about socialism and capitalism after they finished playing. So, you know, although you also steal back from your employer in this game, you're just playing as one worker, and you don't really get to realize the power that exists in numbers. You don't really get to talk about it with other people. I certainly hope that this game can help people to engage with the ideas that it presents, and that's why I've talked so much about the writing and the structure of the story and the things that I'm trying to do to make that happen. And maybe the stealth gameplay can even give you an empowering feeling of overcoming the people in power with cleverness, and maybe it can make you feel radical in a limited sense. So, incidentally, what is happening now is the boss found out that someone was stealing from them. He doesn't know it's you. And he's telling you that, so he's introducing a new real-time mechanic, and this is a big one that you have, he's going to give you a schedule each week, and so now, from now on, when you play the game, you're either going to be on shift or off shift, and you're not restricted to playing the game only when you're on shift. It just changes the consequences. So if you're on shift when you're in the facility and you get caught by guards, so they've put guards into the facility so it's become a stealth game now. So you need to avoid the guards. If you're on shift, they are going to, I think there's too many, we've read too many of these conversations, so I'm going to skip this one. If you're on shift, the same thing will happen as has been happening. They'll just take a crystal from you if they find you carrying one. So you want to avoid that because you won't make as much money off of it. If you're off shift, they will start. They become a bit violent, and they'll start shooting at you. So you can play at any time still, but it will change. It will change the consequences. Anyway, I hope that these stealth mechanics, the real-time mechanics, the story can all add up to getting people to think about things, the themes that the game is addressing, and I also think that there are advantages, certainly, to digital mass media, namely, like, you can reach a wide audience with it, and that's why I'm remixing and playing with recognizable aesthetic forms of like commercial video games in Time Bandit. But I would also like to, you know, after this game is done, make more theatrical kind of work, performative work that brings people together more and creates dialogue and social relationships. Because really, I just think that we should be looking at any aesthetic forms available to us pragmatically. Digital technology is almost definitely important for any political art today if it's going to appeal to a lot of people. But I think that social performance and social interaction are also essential for putting people in the position of reshaping their beliefs and actions. Something that does both would probably have the advantages of both, like digital and physical things. So we are off shift, by the way, and I'm going to try and steal something. Just want to show off this the stealth gameplay a little bit. Ooh, well, I got caught. So I'm gonna get out of here. Forget it. I was gonna try and steal a crystal, but messed that up. Anyway, you know, talking more about like what politically effective art can be. The way I see it, what's been handed to us by history and society is just a lot of tools for our use. And we just have to think about what we want to use them for in order to choose among them. And this is a part of a view of art that I have that a lot of people tend to disagree with me on quite vehemently sometimes. But since I'm here and since I have your attention, I'm going to express it anyway. I don't think that art is anything transcendent that we should set apart from its utility. I think that's an idea of art. That's a totally modern invention. Historically, human beings have always made stuff that was aesthetically pleasing, but nevertheless had great value in whatever it was used for, whether it was fulfilling a need or it was for a ritual. And I don't think the fact of its usefulness detracted from its quality as art whatsoever. I just think that you have to think about what your practical goals are, and that's how you decide what aesthetic forms you'll use. If you were to make art today that could be used directly in organizing and activism and protests and revolts against our unjust systems of oppression, or art that put the life back into people that's been stolen from them by the exploitation of their labor and their time, and art that just really inspired them to act for their freedom, I think that it would be the most beautiful art you could possibly be making. And its utility doesn't detract from it at all, but I think enhances it dramatically. Anyway, I could keep talking about my views on art, but I'll stop it there. And there's unless we want to keep on waiting, there's not too much more that I can show of the game. So I think I will cut it off here. Thanks so much for watching, and you can check out Time Bandits. It's on Steam. You can play the prologue chapter on itch.io. There's also a Discord server if you want to join that, but find me on Twitter, all of those things. Anyway, thanks for watching. See ya.